All right, so I believe the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start fitting these caps, these decorative caps that come with the seat mod kit. Now these for the most part are not structural, though they're just a cosmetic type of thing, but I want to incorporate them because they do look good and they do add a little bit of reinforcement to this corner area, especially since your cross brace through here is not being utilized. So I have this face tight against this vertical upright. So this face is tight against here, and this corner, this face here is clamped tight against this face. So now from underneath, let me switch hands here, apologize for the lousy camera work yet again. When you cup underneath, you can see that you have the holes, the pre-drilled holes already exist, and you can use those as a drill guide to mark the decorative plate. So like usual, I'm going to come in here with a drill bit and I'm going to mark. I'm just going to spin the bit by hand just to put a little indication on the plate itself so I know where I need to drill. So, and you know me, I like to do that a little bit at a time, so I'm not going to mark all of those holes right away. I'm just going to mark one through the holes that exist in this onto this from underneath the back side in here. And I'll take this apart, I'll drill that hole, I'll come back and I'll cleco it. Then I'll mark a couple more, take it apart, drill those, come back, cleco everything, and do a couple more. I'm going to do that a little at a time, and then we'll worry about the slot that has to be put in here as well. So that's the first step. Just get this on and mark it from the inside to drill those holes. Now the other thing that you want to keep in mind, we are also fitting this plate. So just make sure that you can get this plate in where it needs to be. Something like that. So now your plate is in place. Make sure you have clearance. Make sure that this slot is such that you've got clearance for the plate to come in here. You want the plate to sit nice and flat and natural. You don't want any stress already put on the plate because you're trying to jam it in here or you're trying to jam it up underneath the longeron. So make sure it sits in there freely. Make sure that you have that in place. When you put this in place, this cover plate is just resting on top of the end of this vertical piece. It's just resting right up on top here. And I've got it clamped tight and my plate fits. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and transfer those holes. All right. So here is that the cover piece fully drilled and clecoed to this part of the bulkhead. I've got some clecos on this side and I've got some clecos coming in from the back side because I couldn't get up in here to put them in from this direction. But that is in, it fits nice. My plate that slides up on top here, this plate that goes in here fits nice. So now I have to transfer the slot that's in this bulkhead piece onto this. And I'm going to do that simply with a marker. I'll come in from this side. I'll move these clecos out of the way, and using a marker, I'll mark that. I don't know if I'm getting that or not. I'll mark off the location of that slit, that oval-sized slot, to transfer that to the cover, and then I'll using some drill bits and some hand filing, I'll get that fitted, get that cut out and fitted. All right. This is the slot that I was referring to right here. So to transfer this slot to the cover piece, I just came in from the back side with a marker and basically traced it. And here is what that looks like. Just like that. So now, like I said, I'll just use some drill bits and some files and cut that out. So I'll do that and then move on to the next step. At this point, I've got all the holes drilled on this face of the, whatever you want to call this piece, this cover. And I've also got the slot completed in the cover. I've got it all clecoed together just to make sure that it fits nicely with the vertical piece here of this bulkhead. So now that it is complete, I also have it fitted to the heavy aluminum angle. So you can see here, let me adjust this, hold on. Oh, wrong way. You can see here that I've got it fitted also with the heavy aluminum angle. And like I said, obviously with it clecoed, it fits nicely, and the slot fits nicely through all three pieces. So next up, I'm going to try to match drill. I don't know if I can point them out. There are these 4 holes up underneath here, these 4 holes here. Those are already drilled in the heavy aluminum bracket. Those were match drilled from the cross piece that came originally with the kit. Now those have to be drilled into this cover plate, which ultimately will also match the 4 holes here on this piece, which have already been pre-punched from Vans. So let me do that. I'm going to disassemble this, and I'll get back with you. Let me get my thoughts together. Back at the airplane, I've got the cover in place. I've got it clecoed in place. I've got the holes drilled, obviously. I've got the slit drilled. And now I also have it clecoed to the heavy aluminum bracket up underneath here, like I talked about before. So next up, I'm going to transfer these holes, these 4 holes here. I'm going to transfer those through the heavy angle bracket onto the cover plate. Now, one thing I want to point out, when you are drilling the cover plate, when you're drilling the cover plate to this vertical piece here, make sure that you also fit it to the aluminum bracket here. You don't want any gap between the aluminum bracket and the cover piece here. You want these to be nice and tight when you drill all of these holes here up front. So let me get a better camera angle here. So what I'm working on next is the heavy aluminum bracket that's in here. It has those 4 holes in it in this general area. I'm going to match drill from underneath. I'm going to mark those from underneath onto this cover plate, and then I'll take the plate off and I'll drill those. But that heavy aluminum angle piece is inside here. It sits in here, right here. And you want to make sure between the top of that aluminum angle and this, you want those nice and tight. So make sure those are pinched tightly when you're match drilling these holes, because you need the holes in the cover plate, the holes in the vertical piece of the bulkhead, and the holes in the heavy aluminum angle. They all have to mate. They all have to line up and match, but you don't want a gap between the cover plate and the heavy aluminum angle in this plane here. All right, so let me get some more holes drilled. All right, everybody. So now, again, cover plate in place, clecoed to the vertical of the bulkhead, also clecoed to the heavy angle bracket that's underneath. I use the heavy aluminum angle bracket as a guide to come up from underneath with a nice long drill bit. Mark these 4 holes. Took everything apart, took the cover plate over to the drill press, drilled those 4 holes. Now I've got it back in place. Everything is clecoed together. You'll note, or couple things you should pay attention to. You don't want any gap between this leg and the cover plate up underneath here. Very minimal gap, I should say. You don't want any large gap between this face of the cover plate and this face of the vertical part of the bulkhead up underneath here. You want that nice and tight. And then the heavy aluminum angle bracket that's underneath. Where are you, my friend? This here. You don't want any gap between the angle bracket and the cover plate. You want this nice and tight as well. All right. So now that that is done, let me see if I can do this one-handed here. Let me pull these off. I should put the camera on a tripod if I was smart. So what I'm going to do now, I know that the cover plate matches these 4 holes in the cover plate, match the 4 holes in the heavy aluminum angle bracket underneath. Now these holes have been drilled individually, and by that I mean these 4 holes in the aluminum bracket already existed, and I used those as a guide to mark the holes in the cover plate. And then I drilled these 4 holes over at the drill press, but the holes in this plate have not been match drilled to the holes in the angle. I can get clecos in there, but they haven't been through drilled, so to speak. But before I do that, I want to see how all of that now plays with this piece, because like I said, this piece was already punched from Vans. So let me see how this is going to go together here. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Let me see if I can get these clecos back in there. And then if these play nice, then I'll go ahead and match drill all of these pieces as a unit. I'll match drill those 4 holes with all of these pieces together. All right, now I've gotta move some stuff around, and I don't know that I'll be able to one-handed. Oops, that's a little too much. Very tight. These smaller clecos of mine, they have a lot tighter tolerance than the long clecos that I have. So these fit quite a bit tighter than those long ones. So I've got 2 clecos in. I think I can get this third one. I'm almost positive if I were to switch to my other clecos, these would go in. But the holes are very close, so now I'm just going to go ahead and match drill these 4 just to clean them up and get them squared away. And I believe then we'll start laying out holes through here to capture this plate and this cover. And I think a couple of those actually go into the aluminum angle that's underneath. But all in due time. Let me poke away at this a little bit.